What is up, guys? My name is Sprits'N, and today we're going to be talking about the top 10 most masculine men's fragrances. So let's get into this video. So at number 10, we have a recently released fragrance, Spice Bomb Dark Leather, a fragrance that I'm actually doing a giveaway on right now. And if you want to enter it, go watch the video on that fragrance. But it's a leather fragrance with a little bit of sweetness, reminiscent of the Tom Ford Ombre Leather and Tuscan leather fragrances, just a little more sweet. The leather is one of those fragrance notes that I think definitely fit better for men, and this one does a very good job of being very masculine. At number 9, we have an old fragrance but a great one, and that is Bleu de Chanel Eau de Parfum. And now, of course, I know this is an kind of overplayed fragrance, but it's still a solid masculine fragrance choice. It is a perfect balance of the other two Bleu de Chanel fragrances, and for general blue fragrances, these are some of the most masculine ones out there. It is solid with its a little bit of spice, its grapefruit, and its sandalwood. Man, it's a fantastic masculine fragrance, and it's always easy to fall back on this fragrance. So when I think of a masculine fragrance, I'm not thinking of the fruity and sweet fragrances that we're getting as of recently. I think of something more earthy, maybe a little more herbaceous, it's very leathery or woodsy kind of fragrances. That's usually what I think of when I think of masculine. And at number 8, Polo Cologne Intense is the very embodiment of that, with a very herbaceous and woodsy kind of note breakdown. Honestly, it's not for me, but if you're a person that likes the smell of maybe a forest, like a pine forest, with a little bit of rosemary and a little bit of mint in there, this is that fragrance for you. It is a very masculine fragrance, and although not my cup of tea, it may be yours, especially with all the herbs in it. So another fragrance that I'm not really fond of, but is still a great masculine fragrance, is Creed Green Irish Tweed. Now, this is one of those fragrances that are fresh, soapy kind of fragrance, and it may be a little older, but wow, honestly, I'm not one that will lie when it comes to quality and a fragrance being a masterpiece, and this is one of those fragrances that are a masterpiece. I can definitely say that even though I don't enjoy this fragrance, I can definitely see the appeal of it and why it is such a staple from the House of Creed. Now, another fragrance that at one point had the fragrance community by its neck, Lalique Encre Noir. Now, this is one that some people said was way overrated, and some people actually genuinely liked. Now, I liked this fragrance. However, it didn't actually smell the best on my skin. It smelled amazing in the bottle, just not great on my skin. It's a very woody fragrance, very dark, kind of smoky feeling fragrance. And if that's what you're into, that is a fragrance that is great for you. It had some really good projection. Again, really didn't work on my skin, didn't smell the best. On other people, it smelled fantastic, and that is why I inevitably ended up giving that fragrance away. But it was definitely still a masterpiece for the price that you can especially get it at. I think at the time I bought it, it was like $30 for a 100 ml bottle. It was a really good deal. At number 5, we have not just one fragrance, but multiple fragrances, and that is going to be the entirety of the Dior Homme lineup. Now, every single one of these fragrances are honestly kind of the pinnacle of masculine fragrances. They take a floral iris and make it turn masculine with a little bit of leather. That's if you go with Dior Homme Intense, Dior Homme Parfum. All of them are a little bit different from each other, but they are still very masculine fragrances. Or if you want to go the Dior Homme Cologne route, this is a fragrance, a very fresh fragrance that just uses some simple citrus and musk. It is a solid masculine fragrance. Although the performance on that one is not the greatest, all of the entirety of Dior Homme is a great pick if you are looking for masculine fragrances. Similarly, I would say the same thing for the number 4 fragrances, and that is the entirety of the Tom Ford leather fragrances. So Tom Ford Ombre Leather Parfum, the newest Ombre Leather that they just dropped, and Tuscan Leather. All of these fragrances are very masculine, hyper masculine fragrances, I would say. The Tuscan Leather, although not my cup of tea, I can say that the raspberry and leather note is very masculine smelling, and honestly just too much for me. Now, Ombre Leather is the one that I tolerate the most, the original one. It is honestly feels like it's blended so perfectly for a leather fragrances, and although I don't really care for it and I probably would not be wearing it, it is the best in my opinion, and honestly probably the most masculine of the bunch. At number 3, we have a fragrance that I honestly can't really stand, and it seems to be a recurring theme where I am not really into these hyper masculine fragrances. But we have Parfums de Marly Latent Exclusive. Now, this is one of those oud fragrances, and honestly, this does not really smell like the original Latent, so do not get the two confused. But it's got like an animalic kind of smell to it, with maybe a little metallic notes as well. It's got that, of course, traditional oud. It's not really sweet at all. This is a strong masculine fragrance that honestly I can't really stand at all. One of my least favorite fragrances from the house of Parfums de Marly, but it is still a very masculine fragrance, and if that's what you are into, I would suggest checking it out as well. Now, how could we miss the number 2 fragrance, which is Acqua di Gio Parfum or Acqua di Gio Profondo. Now, both these fragrances smell very similar to each other, but both of them are very masculine fragrances. And at one point, Acqua di Gio Profumo was the talk of the town. It was the number 1 fresh fragrances that people would reach for. It was just that good. And honestly, right now, because it's discontinued, the prices on discounted stuff are like jacked up way above what it was for retail. But it was such a solid choice. Then they dropped Acqua di Gio Parfum in replace of the Profumo, which smells similar to the Profumo, I think, with a little bit of incense and freshness in there, but it's just not quite the same. It's a little different, very similar, not the same. If you get either or, those are going to be very masculine fragrances and generally great choices for any man. And at number 1, nobody is surprised, I'm the biggest glazer of this fragrance, Sauvage Elixir. The fragrance that I personally feel like is worth its heavy price tag. It's got that bold smelling licorice, and I know I keep talking about this fragrance, but honestly, guys, I think this is a modern masterpiece fragrance, and as of right now, there's no hyper masculine fragrance that I would pick over this one. This would be my choice for a very masculine fragrance. It's bold, strong, smells unique, and most people, even though this is a very popular fragrance, most people are not spending that much on Sauvage because they just prefer the original Sauvage. So it's unique, and even though we talked about it a lot, you're not going to smell this one out in the wild a lot. So in my opinion, this is the perfect masculine fragrance. It really does not get any better than this. So guys, that is my list of the top 10 most masculine fragrances. And I know I didn't get through all of the masculine fragrances, and there were some fragrances that are probably more masculine than the ones I've said. So if you have any more, leave them down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and make sure to subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to join the giveaway on the Spice Bomb Dark Leather review video. Promise you, you do not want to miss out on that video at all. But that's all I have for you guys. I will see you in the next one.